Hey folks, Rick here. Okay, we're doing it by phone today. Technical difficulties, so sorry I'm a little late today. Want to talk about how you can really elevate the mix in 2026. There's a lot of ways to do it, but let's start with, of course, look, you got to talk to people, you got to fill a pipeline, you got to do all the basics you're supposed to be doing. But I would say I come up with some good points here that I would really highly consider to become good at. The first one is know your market intel, like know the market information. All right, like what's the active inventory? How many are selling every market is slightly different, but I would say, California, Orange County, into Rancho Cucamonga, into the desert, they have around 3.5, 4 months of inventory. Vegas is around 4, Arizona's around 4 months of inventory. All right. So when your sellers want to sell, you got to walk them through that. What's the average days on market? I would even be a little versed on what's going on with the interest rates. I think a lot of people are, I think a lot of people think the rates are going to get better, and I do too. The question is why and how. We have a big thing coming up in May, which is the Fed chair is going to be replaced. So I don't watch the news, but I do look for things that are consistent with my market. Watching the news, it's like I would rather impale myself with garden tools than watch the news actually for a half an hour. But there are certain little tidbits here that you can go on YouTube. You can just be versed on your market and the numbers and why things are important to sellers and buyers in today's market. If I'm a seller and I really want to sell, my price has to be well right now. If I'm a buyer, the big thing is now you have a little bit more inventory to choose from. Although the market's picked up a lot. Open houses the first weekend of the year were very, very busy, even into the weekend between Christmas and New Year's as well. So it's definitely picking up. I think we're getting into a new gear. There's also more open applications that haven't been used yet, let's say, for mortgages. People are applying but haven't used them yet. I think it's the most they've been in 4 or 5 years. So these are things that, it appears the market's going to pick up. It appears the market's going to get better. It was steady last year. It wasn't terrific the last few years, but it definitely seems like it's picking up. Okay, but as a seller in today's market, all you can do is tell them what's going on right now. That's all you can do. Okay, you can't, predict. I wouldn't predict, well, you know what, if I were you, I'd wait. Unless they can wait, then, the interest rates might get a little bit better and so forth, but there's pros and cons as far as that goes. Given what's going on right now, okay? So the other point I wrote down here, so that was number 1, own your market intel. You need to know more about what's going on in your market than your sellers do. You should. You're the professional. That's why they hire you. All right, the next one I wrote down here is double down on your conversations. Like, do you practice, how to have conversations with people? Do you study that? I think it's kind of important. Like, how do you speak to people? Remember, asking questions and listening and taking great notes is always way better than doing all the talking. A lot of people think, well, in order to be a great salesperson, I need to do most of the talking. Just the opposite. Matter of fact, you should really consider a 50-50 rule. 50-50 rule means in a selling situation, do 50% or less. If you can be around 20 to 30% of the actual words going back and forth, that means you're getting really good at it. You need to know the whole story. You have a fiduciary responsibility with sellers, right? You need to know the whole stories as to what's going on. How can you help if you don't know the whole story? By the way, that just makes you come across as commission breath. Meaning the only thing that matters to you is making the sale. And it's a lot bigger than that if you're going to be in this your whole life. Like me, I'm my 41st year in real estate. Can you imagine that? I got my license at 6. I'm joking. All right, hyper-target your marketing. Like for instance, a few things that I would be interested in right now are old expireds, The last 2-3 years, there's been a lot of properties on the market that didn't sell. I would be marketing them. I'd be calling them. I'd be sending them stuff. I'd make sure I have their email addresses. Are you going to be working a farm? Just decide where you're going to do your marketing, and all of that can be also done on social media, which I think is really important. Have a plan and definitely follow it. All right. We already covered number 4 a little bit, which is master the pricing conversation. You need to talk to sellers and say, look, if you want to sell right away, then your price has to be attractive. You have to give them a reason to want to buy your house. Features, benefits versus pricing versus the competition. So the comps are important for appraised value, but that's the past. The future, or now when they're going, is your competition. And you just got to show them. You know, if you were a buyer in today's market and you had this to choose from, what would you do? And you need to make your price according. Price, fix the property up, make sure it's clean, make sure it's in great shape. All right, but it comes down to pricing, features, and benefits versus the competition. And they just need to understand that. Or if you're going to go on and just be one of the same, then you have to have massive patience, because it could take 4 or 5 months, at least 3 or 4 in this market to get it sold. All right. As part of that, number 5 on my list is upgrade your listing game. Whatever you're saying on a listing presentation, if you're not 100%, if you're like, I go on a listing presentation, I know what I'm going to say every time. I mean, depending on their motivation and so forth, it might change slightly, but pretty much I know what I'm going to do. All right. Because I've practiced it. And, you know, if you're an agent with Berkshire Hathaway, as a lot of you are listening to this, you have a great listing presentation right in the VAC. Use it. It shows all the marketing, the websites, all the different international stuff that we have. You know, of course, the MLS is important too, but all the other stuff is very important. So you have a presentation, and part of that presentation is the Berkshire Hathaway marketing presentation, which I recommend you just walk through it, learn it. Maria Hill does a great job at it. Lorette, there's a whole bunch of people. Dominique, if you're in Vegas, you've got, you got a marketing person in every market: Arizona, California, Michaela in California, Abby in Arizona, and you've got Dominique here. Have them help you. Lorette and crew can also help you as well. But if you're talking about marketing, I would talk to one of our marketing people. And when I say Maria, go in the VAC. She does a presentation right in there. You guys can check it out, and I would recommend you do that. All right, so what have we covered so far? Know your market intel, very important. Double down on your conversations. Practice what, I like the ask open-ended questions, repeat, approve, ask your next question. It gets you in. If you have the ADH brain like me, it makes you listen, it makes you pay attention. Make sure you hyper-target your marketing. Definitely focus on your pricing when it comes to listing presentations. All right, and upgrade your listing game, meaning that what you're going to say on a listing presentation, it needs to come across as normal and natural, all right, and confident. People hire you when you're confident, and your presentation needs to come across as confident. Like, I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. You know, as a matter of fact, if it's an expired, while your home was on the market for 6 months, I sold 14 of my own listings. Love to show you how I did that. All right. And so be not cocky, but confident. All right. But number 6 on my list is convert your leads like a pro. Call them. Remember, if you've done any of my training, which I happen to have one today at 1 o'clock right here at the St. Rose office, and you get 3, continuing education credits towards your, and it's an agency class, even though a lot of sales in there, it's technically an agency class towards your license renewal. So come on down if you need some. 1 o'clock right here at the St. Rose office. All right, and so converting leads, meaning call them. If you've done any of my training, you know when lead follow-up is done properly, I call it semi-stalker lead follow-up. You call them. And people go, why do you call them so much? Because you never know. People think, well, last time I called them, they sound a little irritated. Well, you never know. You call somebody at the wrong time. They're having a fight with their spouse or issue at work, and then they sound like they're irritated at you, but they're really not. And then you call them a week later, and they apologize. Oh, I've been meaning to call you. So call them. You have to show them that you're, especially like if they come to my open house, I'm going to follow up. Because, statistically, whoever they decide to use, whoever stays in touch with them the most is the one they decide to use. Then they stick with you as long as you're good. And I'm sure you're good. All right. So convert, listen, follow up, make sure you have a great CRM. And that's my last point for today is work your database, because it is your gold mine. Build it, develop it, keep great notes, know everybody in there. Like I'll give you an example, like my Facebook, I always look at my Facebook numbers, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my TikTok. No, I don't do dance videos. And my YouTube shorts. I'm always looking at the numbers on there, trying to increase them. And part of increasing them means you're doing valuable content, right? People just don't increase because I dance, although I'm considering it. No, I'm not. All right. I like to give information relative to making sales, having a great life, that type of thing. If you want to learn how to dance, there's people out there that will show you how to do that. I am not one of them. All right. So your database is your gold mine, and work it, fill it. And I was using Facebook as an example because if you told me 10 years ago that I would recognize 5,000 people in Facebook in my, my friends and followers, I would tell you you're out of your mind. But I do. I go through, I went through there at the end of last year, just trying to create a little room, get rid of people that I'm not, like, especially the friends part of my personal page, because I only use Facebook for business, even though they say friends. A lot of them are my friends. Some of them are just my Facebook friends, right? But I recognize all of them, which is crazy to me. If you told me 10 years ago I'd recognize that, I'd be telling you you're out of your mind. But I do. They're agents, they're title people, they're friends, a family, all of them. And so I think I eliminated like 10, and I went through probably half of who I have in there, right? So my point is that you're constantly upgrading and updating and using notes. And so when you call them, you remind them what you talked about last time. And, a lot of people that have been in the business, like as long as I have, even half as long as I have, I mean, some of them retire, basically semi-retire on their gold mine database. And you can do the same too if you decide to. And I know people that have sold it to other agents for cash and referrals for X amount of time, whatever. So develop it, maintain it, because it is the gold mine in real estate. And it's really what you're working for. Okay, so you can get this, of course we want you to prospect, and I would recommend you talk to people. And, I loved calling expireds and for sale by owners and around my listings and sales. But if you do that long enough, there'll come a day where you can level off at cruising altitude and use your database to do most of your business. Although you may want to stay sharp by calling new people too. I think it's great for you to get a little outside your comfort zone. Okay, so a quick review. Know your market. I would say intel. Know all the numbers, everything you need to be talking about, even current stuff like interest rates and so forth. Don't make predictions too much though, right? Because then I would recommend you stay away from that, but know what's going on is critical, especially the numbers of your market. Double down on your conversations. If you don't think you're great at conversations, you can become better at it by practicing, all right? Hyper-target your marketing. Know who you're marketing to. You can't be everything to everyone. Decide where you're going to have, the word today is niche, or we used to call it niche. Know where your niche is, all right? And you can have a couple of them, but don't try to be everything everybody comes across. You will have a specialty. Decide what it is. Master the pricing conversation when you're on a listing presentation. As a matter of fact, upgrade your listing presentation at the same time. Don't be afraid to be brutally honest with people. That's what they're paying you for. If you go to a doctor doesn't say, well, we found this on his x-ray, but I don't want to ruin his day and tell him. That's called malpractice if you do something like that. In real estate, it's the same thing. Anybody who has a property on the market for 6 months and lets it expire, to me, that's real estate malpractice. That should never happen, all right? Because you're devaluing the property, and you need to explain that to your sellers too. So convert your leads like a pro. Part of that is just staying in touch with them and, making sure that you're following up. Remember, semi-stalker lead follow-up. And then work your database like it's gold, because it is, all right? So important. Keep it rocking. If you need some CE credits, come on down to the St. Rose office today at 1 o'clock, second floor. I'll be doing the listing process, plus working with buyers. It's an agency class. And I hope you all elevate the mix in 2026. There's my saying. Thank you, guys.